Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
EAGLES. Eagles.
From the amazing Gallery Bar, Book, and Games here in Atlantic City at Ocean Casino, it's the Malamut Law pregame show. Marc Farzetta along with you today, and I will let you know, ahead of it being Week 9 here in the NFL, or as we know it better, Dallas Week in Philadelphia, I do want to give a special shout-out to our colleague and our friend Derek Gunn. Gunner cannot be with us today due to a family emergency, so please send prayers, send good vibes to the way of the Gunn family. But I do welcome you in to the Malamut Law pregame show. We'll be breaking it all down today when it comes to the Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys come into town to South Philadelphia at 5-2, while the Eagles are at 7-1, enjoying the best record in the NFL. Today is not just about the Eagles creating more separation, it's also about extinguishing any momentum the Dallas Cowboys with 2 consecutive wins could have coming in to South Philly. I'll welcome in our co-analysts today. We have Eagles great and Eagles Hall of Famer Mr. Seth Joyner joining us today, of course, and Adam Malamut himself of Malamut Law. Later on, Bill Colarulo will be joining us for his analysis when it comes to Legal Hands to the Face podcast, as well as the Philly Sports Power Hour right here on JAKIB Media. Seth, I'm going to start with you. As it is Cowboy Week, as a former Eagle, does this week mean a little bit more to you than others?
Always, every time. I don't care what the records are. I don't care what the outlook on the team is. This is always a big game, our biggest rival, bar none.
When it comes to knowing the rivalry, now you are originally from the tri-state area, New York, Philly, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, obviously. You probably knew a little bit about the rivalry already, but when did it set in for you as a player that it was hitting Philly a little bit different?
Well, I really didn't follow Philadelphia Eagles football until I became an Eagle. But the hatred for the Cowboys has always been present. I mean, even growing up as a kid watching the Cowboys, I did not like the Dallas Cowboys whatsoever. And then when I got to Philly and started playing for the Eagles, I was like, wow, this is like, my hatred on steroids. It was perfect.
Wonderful. All right, Adam, as a Philadelphia fan through and through, was this week mean to you?
Listen, Seth said it best. I don't know that there's a more hated team in Philadelphia than the Dallas Cowboys. So I've heard Seth talk before about, sometimes people need a punch in the mouth. That's how I feel about the Eagles-Cowboys rivalry. I want to see the Eagles come out. I want to see them punch them in the mouth. And, I told all of my friends who are Cowboys fans that this week at 4:25, we are not friends. We'll resume our friendship in another time, but at 4:25, we are not friends.
I don't think I have any friends that are Cowboys.
You've done a good job.
That, Seth. I may adopt that.
Can't do it.
Great job of venting your friends. Just vetting your friends, making sure they don't get past the background check. When it does come to this history here of this rivalry, I know a lot of plays jump to mind. Adam, I'm going to start with you. When you think about this history here between these two teams, are there plays that jump to mind immediately when you think of Eagles-Cowboys?
Yeah, so far as some of our audience, I'm sure will be old enough to remember this. Some might be too young. But in 1996 and 1997, you had Bobby Taylor. I think he was a 95 draft pick or somewhere around there. He was drafted, I believe, almost for the purpose of covering Michael Irvin, who's a big, tall cornerback. Brian Dawkins was on the team. We had a great defense. And I remember a couple plays, one specifically where, and look, I don't root for any player to get hurt, almost any player to get hurt, but I remember one play where Brian Dawkins and Bobby Taylor hit Michael Irvin and just stood over him. Literally just stood over him, and they sent a message, and that was that Philadelphia spirit coming out in them. That was the Philadelphia DNA, and they talked about this hit for years. And before the show, Farzy, you and I talked about it. It's amazing that Michael Irvin's taken the high road and not blame them for what I think really was the demise of his career, his great storied career. But, Bobby Taylor would shut him down. And I don't remember a game that Michael Irvin had where Bobby Taylor was the cornerback where Michael Irvin had a big number, a big stat game. So that would probably be, amongst my fondest memories.
It's so crazy because a lot of people will talk about Philadelphia in a negative light, but the guy that got hit, Michael Irvin himself, always talks about it in a positive light. Say, hey man, those fans, they are them. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Those are the fans right there that bring it every single time, and if they're going to be at that high level, it should only elevate your level of play as a visiting player. Seth, when you think back on your career, are there plays that really stick out to you when involved in this rivalry?
I think more so games than actual plays. The 11 sack game was a huge game. I can remember a Monday night game here at the Vet. Every game against them was memorable because, the hatred was so deep, and it wasn't just, it was mutual. It was extremely mutual. Like, I hated going to Dallas to play there, as I'm sure they hated coming here to play us. But we were a measuring stick for each other. I don't think that they could realize or step into, their Super Bowl wins until they felt that they could handle us as a defense. And once they overcame that hurdle, there wasn't really much, to stand in their way as far as them, because it was a process, because we used to beat them like, they stole something, and I mean like really beat them. And then, you could see over the years, over time, them getting better and better and better to the point where they could solve our defense. And once they could solve our defense, that was, their calling card to go to the next level.
I want to obviously ask you a little bit more about the rivalry here and going forward in this game today as well. Biggest mismatch in the Eagles' favor. We'll get to that in a second. But there has been this term that has been thrown about, and you guys have heard this a lot before today. That is the gauntlet. That is the slate of games the Eagles have after today versus the slate of games the Dallas Cowboys have after today. Now, I'm sure you've seen it, but just in case you haven't, of course, you got the Dallas Cowboys today here in Philadelphia before the Eagles take their bye week. Then the Eagles come back and they face the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. Then they host Buffalo. Then they host San Francisco. And then they got the Dallas Cowboys again in Big D before going to Seattle, to the noisiest stadium in all the NFL out there in Seattle to face the Seahawks. Now, meanwhile, in the very near future, the Philadelphia Eagles, while they take their bye, the Cowboys are going to be facing those Eagles today. Then they got the Giants, then the Panthers. Neither of those two teams happen to be good at football, unfortunately for the Eagles. And then the Dallas Cowboys got the Commanders. So quite the different slate of games here. I know we always talk about this, Seth. Don't look ahead. You got to focus on what you have right now. But this is, I hate the term must win. This would be really nice to win this game, aside from the obvious just beating the Cowboys. How important is it for the Eagles to stay focused on this game tonight?
I don't particularly care 100% for how the Eagles have won games, but I'm, excited about the fact that they've learned how to win in a myriad of different ways. I'm not really overly concerned with this gauntlet because the one thing about the Eagles, what they do is they get up for the teams that they need to get up for. It's the New York Jets and the Washington Commanders twice, that leaves you scratching your head because these are the teams that they should just be dominating, and they don't. But you get the Miami Dolphins that roll in here with their high-flying offense. Even the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year, this football team steps up against better competition so much more than they do against competition that they know that they should beat. So I don't – while, they're playing against teams with a great combined win-loss record, in their favor. But I'm not really worried because I think this is where we really find out about this football team, and this is where we really find out whether they are willing to step up in back-to-back weeks to actually get it done, because that's what it's going to take for them to get back to the big game. That's what it's going to take for them to get to Las Vegas and win in Las Vegas rather than being the runner-up.
Adam, again, you can never look ahead. You can never look down the schedule. You can only face the opponent that's in front of you now, and that happens to be the Dallas Cowboys. But the Eagles do take an L today, which I'll say for the record right out of the gate, I'm not expecting them to, but if they do, they have the rougher road ahead, and the Dallas Cowboys have a red carpet of opportunity rolled out in front of them.
Can we stop at the negativity? Can we stop at the
I mean, just picked them to win. I didn't even give the official prediction yet, but I said they would win.
No, if they take the L. Listen, here's how I look at it. Before you get to the playoffs, you have to make the playoffs.
Sure.
Every win counts. We need to beat them today. This is a defining game for us. because I think that that'll set up the momentum for the Eagles to finish strong in their division. Obviously, the stronger they finish in their division, the higher seed they end up. Kansas City had a win earlier today, but they weren't the Kansas City of last year. They haven't been all season. So I'm not looking ahead to what happens in the future games. I think that, like Seth said, I think that there are teams that the Eagles will rise for. You get worried about the teams that they really should walk all over. The divisional games, you always worry about the Washington, Commanders and the New York Giants, because historically, in the division they've split, probably more often than not, right? But my hope here is that the Eagles come out, they keep Jalen healthy, they get to the bye week, they give him an opportunity because he still hasn't said that he's 100% and that he's fine, but they get to the bye week, they get him out there, and we proceed from there. But if we win this game today, there
you go.
I am confident that it doesn't really matter what the schedule is going to look like. It all comes down to the W's. So who can count more W's? And look, I think that the Eagles are in a better position than the Dallas Cowboys are for that.
For the record, what I am expecting is for the Philadelphia Eagles to be the team that everybody else on that said gauntlet is worried about. For the record.
No question.
And I hope, and I think today is a day they help solidify that reasoning as well. Seth, when you do look at this matchup today, Eagles have done a lot of great things, obviously, this season when it comes to running the football at times. They have gotten away from it, unfortunately, throwing the football. Jalen Hurts coming off one of his best games of the season. When you look at this particular matchup against the Cowboys today, what do you think is the best thing the Eagles have going in their favor for today? What's the biggest advantage the Eagles have going up against the Cowboys?
Well, the biggest advantage is, one of the big advantages is going to be at home. That's the first thing. You got the home field advantage. We're going to make it extremely difficult for Dallas at the link today. But from a player's perspective, I feel like the Cowboys aren't that good of a team against the run. Defensively, they rank 18th against the rush. They give up 108 yards per game. And we go through these machinations every single week, They are 4th against the pass. They're only giving up 178 yards per game to opponents throwing the ball. And you would think that there is enough there, to warrant the Eagles' game plan to be, okay, let's come out, let's run the football, let's minimize and negate Micah Parsons by running the football at him early. Do not let them get frenzied, because they're going to come in here realizing that it's them. They got 53 guys on that roster and their coaching staff, and it's them against, a whole city. So they've got to come out frenzied and try to figure out a way to, quell the noise and quell the enthusiasm and the energy that the fans will pass on to the Eagles. So the Eagles have to figure out a way to withstand that to begin with, especially on the offensive side, because that defense is going to be coming. They're not going to sit back and allow Jalen Hurts to just do what he wants to. They know that he's slowed with the knee injury, and they know that the focal point is A.J. Brown. So how can they negate that? They're going to have some coverages to take A.J. away. They're going to do some things to force Jalen Hurts into a second read. And I just feel like, if there's ever a game, this is the game where you come out and you run the ball often and early, you dominate the line of scrimmage, you slow Michael Parsons down, and then you turn around and you go play action to move the ball. I'm not – I think that sometimes people think that I'm this great proponent of, just strictly running the football, What I'm in favor of is enough of a balance to say that you're, 40-60 run, 40%, pass 60%. If you get to 50, I'm even thrilled even more. But I'm willing to give that extra 20% to the pass game. But you can't be so far out of whack as far as, the passing game is concerned, because, I sat back and I watched the Chiefs game this morning. And both of those teams run the ball extremely well. And Miami had an opportunity late in that game to actually tie the game up. They ran the ball and got down in position, and then they fell in love, with the pass all over again. I mean, Mostert was just running through that Kansas City offense. And all of a sudden, they threw the ball 4 times in a row and put themselves in a position where Steve Spagnuolo could come after him, and Tua just, he fell apart. So why stop running the football when you're dominating? And I'm not saying that, hey, don't throw the football, because that's where the explosiveness is in our offense. But you got to run the football enough early to make them believe that you're going to run it, so that it opens up the rest of your playbook, and you can have everything else from a passing perspective in your playbook, that you want. If you make yourself one-dimensional, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons are going to feast. They're going to come. And Dan Quinn is not your cover 3, conservative defensive coordinator anymore. He's got some blitzes that he will dial up to try to make Jalen uncomfortable and move him off his spots and make him physically uncomfortable with that knee.
To tease something for a later segment on this pregame show, we're going to get into something else that we talk about often that I think we're actually going to have to see from the Eagles today. This is on the defensive side of the football. But, Adam, I know you're going to the game.
I am.
Yet you're in Atlantic City right now.
Yep.
Do you own a jetpack?
I'm trying, man. Listen, I don't have the speed that Seth has, but we're gonna go. I'm getting changed, and I'll be in the end zone giving some serious Philadelphia love to that Dallas Cowboy team. You think about this, Farzy, the Philadelphia fans, and there's probably well over 100,000 fans that are in that area right now, have been out there drinking and partying since about 7 o'clock this morning. They are going to get nothing but brotherly love. People complain about the brotherly shove. They are going to get nothing but brotherly love down there.
Hey, I don't know about you guys, but I have a brother. It's not always, puppy dogs and ice cream. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Sometimes you show your love to your brother in a different way. All right? A lot of trash talk goes on there.
Exactly.
What is your prediction for Eagles-Cowboys today, Adam?
Man, I hurt my my record a little bit with an earlier game. I think that this is going to be a closer game, and believe it or not, I think it's going to be more of a defensive game. I think each team's going to come out trying to feel each other out a little bit more. I'm thinking this might be a 24-17 Eagles win.
24-17. All right, what's one thing, before we let you go, one thing you want to see from the Eagles today that will help get to that score with them coming out on the winning side?
Run to the left. Like Seth said, keep running the ball. Take that pressure off of Jalen Hurts. You've got healthy line on the left-hand side. Run the ball to the left. Stay away from, any goofy, RPOs that are going to sacrifice Jalen. Let him get to the bye week healthy. And if we just keep running the ball, we've got enough talent on this team that we can move that ball effectively, set up the pass.
All right. Fair enough. All right, go get your jetpack on. Go get your Eagles jersey on and get to that end zone, man. Give them hell.
Look for me down there. I'm going to be waving at you guys.
We absolutely will. Adam Malamut, of course, joining us here on the Malamut Law pregame show. Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn, once again, not with us today. He has a family emergency that he is tending to. Send good vibes, send prayers Gunner's way. I did talk to him earlier today. He is in good spirits, but all the more encouragement to him would be appreciated. Bill Colarulo will be joining us coming up momentarily here on the Malamut Law pregame show from Ocean Casino.
Welcome to Pond Lehocky, the largest workers' compensation law firm in Pennsylvania. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. Even better, Pond Lehocky doesn't charge a dime until you win. If you've been injured at work, give Pond Lehocky a call.
And welcome
to the Diamond Debate
with Liam and Hillary
in the heart of Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania.
What you got for us today on your right hand, Hill?
Today we've got a right-hand ring, Liam.
What is that?
It's a ring that you would wear on your right hand.
That's it?
That's all there is to it.
Okay.
It's meant to balance your left hand situation, or if you're not engaged or married, it says, I'm not engaged or married, but I still have this over here that's sparkly.
There's a lot of other ways you can say that.
No, not if you're trying to wear jewelry. Which
Okay.
one's your favorite?
I love this Art Deco moment. I mean, with these beautiful baguettes and round diamonds. I mean, who wouldn't say no to one of these?
Baguettes are hot right now. People also love an eternity band. It's beautiful.
Great for the other hand.
That's right. So come on down here, where love grows here at Mark's Jewelers.
Every day of the week except Sundays and Mondays.
That's because we are closed.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show here from the amazing Ocean Casino Gallery Bar Book of Games. Marc Farzetta with you. We're going to get to the inactives coming up in just a second, but right now joining us is our friend Bill Colarulo, Legal Hands to the Face podcast, as well as the Philly Sports Power Hour right here on the JAKIB Media Sports channel. Seth Joyner, Eagles Hall of Famer, with us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of mismatches that could be going on in today's football game for the Eagles to improve to hopefully 8-1 on the season. We'll get to some of those mismatches, but right now we'll talk about the inactives. One of the inactives today, a little bit surprising, Derek Barnett actually not traded at the deadline earlier in the week, and now he is inactive.
Why is it a
little surprising? Because it's not like he has been good this year either, and this is the first time we're seeing him listed as inactive.
Yeah, that's the reason why it's not a surprise.
But after the trade deadline, no, you were saying it's most likely going to be Nolan Smith getting his looks? Okay.
I mean, I think you saw Nolan Smith get a lot more reps last week. I think his numbers continue to go up, and it gives them a lot more versatility when they get their five-man front, because they have to play their five-man front if Dallas comes out and tries to establish the run. They cannot stop the run in their four-man front. They are terrible. The linebackers don't seem to know where to fit. You know, they don't see pullers and things of that nature. I was looking at a piece and breaking down something earlier this week, just talking about, you know, how the linebackers weren't reading properly, and it's always out of the four-man look. Out of the five-man look, you cannot move them.
All right, now one of the other names that is on the inactive list today, unfortunately for a lot of football fans here, for a lot of Boston Scott fans here, Boston Scott is inactive today. Rashad Penny active today. Now, we have not seen a lot of Rashad Penny so far this season, Bill. I tend to believe that he has lost that step that made him more of an explosive player. I know, Seth, you're going to talk about a quote that he had earlier in the week, but what is your reaction to seeing Rashad Penny activated today?
I really don't know because we don't know if they're even going to give him any carries today. We all want it. I know the fans really want it. We'd love to see what this guy has left, and we've talked about it over the last few weeks. The running backs are not averaging a lot of yards per carry. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that we can get into, but it would be nice to see them give at least Rashad Penny a few carries to see what this guy has left. Now, Gunner said on the show last week, people inside the organization have told him Penny's there as an insurance policy. Well, I don't know how he's an insurance policy when you don't even know what you have yet. So I would love to see him get some carries today. I just don't know if he will.
There is a number that Seth Joyner is about to say, and I want to believe it. I want to believe he's going to get to this number because that means the Eagles are doing just fine and dandy against this Cowboys team. You believe it's going to be considering he hasn't had much this season, a rather big day for Rashad Penny.
I think he gets at least 8 carries today. Listen, you can't sell wolf cookies or wolf tickets, I should say, the way that he sold wolf tickets this week. He's asked by Jeff McClain, there's a rumor that, hey, you've lost some of your explosiveness. And he pretty much said, hey, listen, we don't know whether I've lost it. I have not had an opportunity to show whether I could be explosive or not. So I get the sense that, they're going to find out today. They're going to want to see. I don't know that I buy in 100%. Listen, I agree with a lot of what Derek Gunn says, but, you don't pay a guy $1 million a year to sit on the bench as an insurance policy, because when you need him, you need him to step in and be able to perform at the level you need him to perform. And I get it. Nick Sirianni can have all the confidence that he wants in Kenneth Gainwell, but until, we as fans and the media begin to see the production, it means absolutely nothing. So we want to see what Boston Scott can do. We want to see what Rashad Penny can do, And if you're going to talk about the meritocracy within this game, if it truly is what it always was, then that the best players get an opportunity to play. And I get it. There are some positions that, that doesn't necessarily fly. Not everybody, you don't treat everybody the same. I get it, and I understand that. But when you're talking about running backs, we can get him a dime a dozen. Well, give the damn guy a chance to play and show what he can do so he's earning his money. He's not there for an insurance policy. He's there, to be a part of what's going on. And if somebody gets hurt, you got another back. But I look forward to seeing what he can do. And to be honest with you, I believe that he's just a little bit different than what they envisioned for this offense, because he's a one-cut back. And even when you run your zone plays, he's going to stick his foot in the ground and he's going to get downhill right away. When you watch these other backs, they're kind of shifty, and they're patient enough to wait for blocking schemes to develop to pick which side they want to go in some of these zone plays. So sometimes he might not be as productive, as we want to see. But when the decision is right, the one run that he had this year, when the decision is right, it's explosive, it's fast, and he will move people out of the way. But if the cut is wrong, it could be a 1-yard gain or a 1-yard loss.
While we're talking about running backs, Seth, I have to ask you about a specific running back, and that's Kenny Gainwell. It came out after last week's game that he apparently was on his phone at halftime.
There's no apparent about it.
He was on his phone at halftime. It's been confirmed by everyone that matters in this regard. Kenny Gainwell came out. He was asked about it. Nick Sirianni confirmed it the Monday following the game, saying that, yes, they had talked to him about it. Finally, Kenny Gainwell was available in the locker room when it was open to the media, and he said, yeah, that's what happened. He said he was on his phone. He's on his phone at every halftime. He either calls his girlfriend, he calls his mom and dad, or he checks in via text, and apparently one thing popped up and he saw it. He made the wrong clicked on it, opened it up, and responded. How do you handle that in the locker room when it's an obvious note of somebody being distracted at halftime?
I didn't like Nick Sirianni's response. On Monday he said, we talked to Kenneth about it. And what the hell you mean you talked to him about it? What the hell do you mean that, you're on your phone, every halftime? Sometimes you call your girlfriend at a halftime of a football game?
Check in. He said he checks in with his girlfriend or his parents.
Come on, man. Come on. I think, so we've gone so far. First it was J.J. Arthur-Whiteside with his mom holding the umbrella, trying to keep the damn sun off of him during training camp, And now we're coddling and babying these guys they want to be on their phones at halftime. You're paid to do a job. You mean to tell me that 3 hours can't go by where your parents and your girlfriend doesn't need to be updated as to what the hell's going on? They're probably either at the game or they're somewhere watching the game. They can see that you're not hurt, you're not injured, you don't have a hangnail, you'll be okay. You don't need to be on your phone. To me, that's a suspendable offense, okay? They should have sat him down this week to send a message. You don't get to turn the damn ball over in the red zone, okay, and cost us 7 points and then go in at halftime unfocused, and make phone calls and check your social media and reply to people. That's nonsensical. That's non-professional, okay? Who told him that was okay? And the message that the Eagles send that it's okay to do it, Just don't send the message, but it's okay to be on your phone at halftime. Why don't you lock in and focus on what the hell you're supposed to do and give this team some production?
Mm-hmm. Well, we always seem to be on our phones nowadays. Kenny Gainwell said, in my generation, we're always on our phones all the time. That's where we live our lives. Our lives are all on the phone.
Not when you're at work.
Not when you're at work. I agree with you. Bill, what was your reaction to the news coming out, Eagles confirming it, and then Kenny Gainwell's response to it?
I saw Seth's tweet right away. I responded to him and said, I agree with you. I think it should be a suspendable offense. But Sirianni seemed more upset with the fan that reposted it than he did with Kenny Gainwell. So I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all. But something back to what Seth said about Rashad Penny, hopefully getting 8 carries today. Well, I hope they give the running backs 8 carries today. I mean, that's one of the things we haven't seen over the last few games. And I actually talked about this last week, about how the running backs' yards per carry have dropped over the last 5 games. And I was trying to figure out, why has that happened? A lot of people are pointing to Cam Jurgens. A lot of people are pointing to Kenny Gainwell getting too many carries. But I went and looked. The first 3 weeks of the season, when they were averaging over 5 yards per carry, in the first half of games, they gave their running backs, on average, 13 carries in the first half. The next 5 games, we've seen the yards per carry drop to 3.2 for the RBs. They're only giving their running backs on average 7 carries in the first half. They cut it in half. And you've heard Seth Joyner say it before, and we say it every week. The running game's not something you can just turn on. You have to establish it. You have to get into some sort of rhythm. And looking at these numbers, they've gotten away from it way too early in games. So if it's Rashad Penny getting 8 carries today, if it's Kenny Gainwell, if it's DeAndre Swift, they just need to commit to the run early. Because the one thing this defense on Dallas hasn't done very well this year, it's stopped the run. They've done everything else extremely well. So I'd like to see them commit to the run and commit to it early.
See, I like to go back and just look at the numbers, okay? So the problem with the Eagles is they started off the season and the passing game was out of whack, okay? They really struggled to throw the ball. And then they roll into Minnesota, okay? And things were going so bad that they made the decision, okay, we're going to run the football. So they ran the football 48 times for 259 yards. And then they go into Tampa Bay the next week. Oh, it ain't broke. Don't fix it. They run another 40 times for 201 yards, okay? And then they get to week 4, and against Washington, they figure, hey, we can get well in the passing game. And that's at that point you can start to see the passes begin to ramp up, Bill. And I see you looking at your notes just like I'm going back looking at mine. That's where, and then Jalen has such a good day throwing the ball against them. Then they roll into the Rams. And now it starts to begin to get a little bit out of whack, okay? And then by the time they get back and now they got the Jets, they're just full-blown out of control as far as, because they had 51 call pass plays versus only 18 call run plays. And then, but they're winning. And just as long as they're winning, what they really want to do is they really want to throw the ball. I have this theory. I don't know how correct it is or how misaligned I am in my thought, but we talked about it, Bill, in the first segment with Adam. I sat and I watched the entire Chiefs versus Miami game today. And, the Chiefs jump out to a 21-point lead. Miami comes back, 2 minutes left in the game. Mostert is just running through the Chiefs' offense. And they get down in scoring position. They decide to throw the ball 4 times in a row, and they wind up losing the ball. Now, what in the world made you think all of a sudden you need to throw the ball 4 times in a row when you're gashing them, and not only are you gashing them, but you're running the clock down? So if you get down there and you decide you want to go for 2, and win the game without going into overtime, you're in perfect position because you don't leave Mahomes any time on the clock. But no, they throw the ball, boom, on downs, the game is over. Game, set, and match, okay? So what the Eagles want to do, and I just feel like, this is my theory, is that the quarterbacks make a boatload of money. And I heard it before. I heard it with the Jets game. I believe, as someone on radio said, well, that 3rd and 9 where I said run the ball and then punt it and let the defense, win you the game. Well, you don't pay Jalen Hurts what you're paying him to rely on the defense. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Because he was already having a bad day. Murphy's Law was in effect. Everything that could go wrong and might go wrong went wrong that day for them offensively in throwing the football. But the defense was the stalwart of the day. So let the defense do what it's supposed to do. Is it about, you validating the fact that you're paying these quarterbacks all this money, or is it truly about the W's? Because if it's about the W's, then and you say we're willing to do whatever we have to do to win, then do that. Then do that. But the problem is they've been able to win the last 3 or 4 games throwing the football at an increased rate, and until they lose one, of significance. The Jets is insignificant. That game was insignificant. It was probably one of those games where they needed to lose a game in order to kind of get the team and everybody's focus back. But these next 5 games are really, really critical games for them. And I just get the sense that, if they fall in love with the run game in this situation, it's going to be problematic for them. They've got to balance their offense up. And like I said, 60-40 pass the run, I'm okay with that. But if you start getting way out of whack, 65 to 70% pass to 35 or 40, 35 to 30 to 35%, run, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble, especially against these explosive offenses where you increase the amount of possessions you have in a game opposed to minimizing it.
Gotcha. We're going to head to Lincoln Financial Field right now where our NFL insider John McMullen is standing by. Also the co-host of Birds 365 right here on the JAKIB Media Sports Channel. John, first and foremost, let's talk about these inactives. Bradley Roby, not a huge surprise there. Boston Scott, not a huge surprise. But obviously having a guy go out there as a running back in Rashad Penny, what do you think of the realistic expectations for Penny today?
I wouldn't get overly hyped, but he's going to get an opportunity. And obviously, DeAndre Swift is going to be the lead back. Kenny Gainwell is going to be the complement to that. And then Rashad Penny will figure in from there. If he gets hot earlier, he might get a few more carries. But, the Eagles are pretty much penciled in now with Swift and Kenny Gainwell, those top 2 backs. And if somebody else gets hot on a particular week and there are few opportunities, then you give them a few more. So Boston Scott obviously was rolled out on Friday over a personal issue. So we knew it was coming with Rashad Penny. I think the most interesting one, Derek Barnett, inactive for the first time this year. So, you want to get Nolan Smith involved. Patrick Johnson, who has been inactive, is back. He helps more on special teams. Ben Van Sumeren has been elevated. He's also big on special teams. So it's clear Dallas has one of the best special teams group in the NFL. So the Eagles are honed in on that. John Fossil has a tremendous reputation in this league. So they're clearly concerned about that aspect, which a lot of people don't talk about, but that's been a big thought process for the Eagles this week.
Hey, what's up, John? A lot of people know that this game's going to come down to, can the Philadelphia Eagles stop CeeDee Lamb, especially when he lines up in the slot? The Dallas Cowboys offense hasn't been that great this season, but one of the bright spots has been CeeDee Lamb. Bradley Roby out again. Who do you expect to line up in that slot corner position going up against CeeDee?
Yeah, very similar to last week. Sidney Brown and sort of Eli Ricks piecemealing it inside, but I think you might see a little bit more Ricks than Brown this week because CeeDee's capable of getting down the field, so you probably want the coverage player. Either way, let's be honest, it's not a good matchup for the Eagles, and you're probably going to have to zone it. You're probably going to have to bracket him as much as possible. And this is one of those games similar to Tyreek Hill a couple weeks ago. You know he's going to get his. You just don't want those 10 catches to turn into 150 yards. I think they gave up 10 for 88 or somewhere around there with Tyreek Hill. Very similar thought process with CeeDee Lamb. You know he's getting something. You want to limit it as much as possible.
Hey, John, you touched on special teams, and I don't know. I've been trying to research this Cavante Turpin kid. He didn't show up in the stat line last week, so I'm not sure whether he's injured or not, but he is extremely dangerous. You talk about all the moves that the Eagles are making to try to shore up the special teams. Listen, my thing is Jake Elliott better kick every damn kickoff out the end zone, and then he better turn around and they better angle punt or punt it out of bounds because this kid can flip the game and change the game. And to be honest with you, if the Cowboys are anywhere near midfield and they got to punt the ball, I'm going defense stay every single time. I'm not even going to give them the opportunity to run anything crazy, any kind of fake or anything.
John has a history of doing that, so you got to have the antenna up. He's one of those special teams coordinators that is most likely to do things like that. And the Eagles are very aware of it. Michael Clay was talking about it this week. And they have a good unit, and that's why you have sort of more athleticism with Van Sumeren and Patrick Johnson to get out there to try to limit those potential playmaking abilities. But you're right, the easiest way to do that, Seth, is to, make sure, and it's a nice day here, make sure Jake Elliott kicks the ball out of the end zone or as close as possible. Make sure Braden Mann, if you do have to punt the ball, is punting it directionally, limiting potential return opportunities. And as far as the defensive part of it, play safe as much as possible. You don't really have to worry. Britt and Kobe's having a great year, but if you have to sacrifice a week and not be concerned with getting the big return, this is probably the week you want to do it. Play as safe as possible.
John, we've talked about the run game and how much we'd like to see the Philadelphia Eagles run the football in this particular game, but that's not going to go very far, nor is protecting your quarterback if the offensive line isn't playing at a high level. What do you know about the right guard spot with Tyler Steen? What do you know about the situation there with Sua Opeta and his injury? Who can we expect, and how do we expect that offensive line to look today?
Yeah, all indications, and we'll find out when they get into pregame warm-ups here, but I expect Tyler Steen to start at right guard. Sua didn't have his best game at Washington. He is a little bit banged up, but obviously he's healthy enough. He's dressed, so he's going to be part of it. But it's going to be Tyler Steen. And, look, this is where the Eagles want to go. So they brought him along slowly. He got his feet wet in Washington, very limited sample size. But when the coaches watched the film, they were very impressed with that limited sample size. And look, he's a very, very talented player. He's more athletic. And against this Dallas front, that's what you want because they're not above moving Micah Parsons inside, circling, whether it's Sua Opeta, Tyler Steen. And by the way, they'll circle both. So it's that's the weakness of the Philadelphia offensive line right now. And the Cowboys know that. The Cowboys will try to take advantage of it. But I do expect Tyler Steen to be the starting right guard.
John, you look at this Dallas team, they're number 2 in the NFL in points per game, but their offense really hasn't been that dominant. The way they're doing this is by scoring points on the defensive side of the ball, especially corner DaRon Bland already with 4 interceptions, 3 pick six. How impressed have you been with DaRon Bland, and does Jalen Hurts really need to be careful about where he is on the field?
Yeah, I think the Eagles are going to try to take advantage of it. You know, you think about Trayvon Diggs. Typically, when you lose a playmaker like Trayvon Diggs, you say to yourself, all right, we're in trouble here for at least a little bit because, you know, the Eagles kind of saw it with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. It's tough to replace a guy who can make plays on the football consistently. The Cowboys did it without missing a beat. DaRon Bland, as you mentioned, the 3 pick sixes. But they take some chances. Diggs did, Bland does. So watch out for those sluggos. Watch out for those double moves. The Eagles are going to try to get them to bite on that, maybe get the football down the field on occasion. So, you know, they're going to try to take advantage of it. And whether they can or not might be the difference of this game, because big play going one way versus big play going the other way can devastate the opposing team. So the Eagles want to turn that aggressiveness against the Cowboys in at least a couple of occasions.
John, that's interesting. I talked about that earlier in this week. Of you know, the way that you stymie an aggressive team is use their aggressiveness against them. You know, even in the run game. You know, maybe some delayed draws, some delayed handoffs, some screens. You know, things like that to really slow them down. You know, over time, this coaching staff has really moved towards a more pass-centric offense. You know, from early in the season, you know, when they really had to run the ball because the passing game wasn't flowing the way that they wanted to. And I think that sometimes, you know, when you have success and you're winning a certain way, you can fall in love with running, you know, with running your offense that way. Against Dallas, you know, they're ranked 18th against the run. They're ranked 4th against the pass. Common sense would say, let's dominate the line of scrimmage early. Let's take them, you know, take their pass rushers out of the game. Let's run the ball at Micah Parsons and put him in duress again, and then that's going to open up everything else. Do you get a sense in any way, shape, fashion, or form that might be their game plan, or is it business as usual? We're going to throw it early and throw it often and get a lead, and then try to run the game out later on?
I think it's business as usual because the Eagles have confidence in what they do. Rightfully so. We're at, I got to do the math all the time. We're at 26 consecutive regular season weeks where the Eagles have either had the best record in the NFL or tied for the best record in the NFL. So they've had success. One thing about, you know, run versus pass, I always say, and I've said it since last year, they're not a run-first team, they're not a pass-first team. They're a Jalen Hurts first team. So the problem right now is Jalen Hurts is not 100% on that knee. So some of his running ability has been taken out of the equation, and I think that's the strength of the Eagles' running game. The spacing he creates, the way he manipulates the defense with the ability, the threat to pull the football. They don't have that right now, or they haven't had it. We'll see how Jalen comes out as far as health standpoints. And look, you know, they don't have Earl Campbell in the backfield to just turn it around and hand the football out. He's going to run it old school downhill. They're based on Jalen Hurts. And right now, that's the part of his game that's limited. And that's why they've shifted a little bit over the past couple of weeks. When he's not limited, they'll go back to doing what they normally do, and that's sort of look at what the defense has given him, whether it's week 2 against Minnesota, week 3 against Tampa Bay, heavy run games, last week against Washington, heavy pass game. You know, they'll try to take advantage of what's out there. But generally, yes, Seth, they want to get the lead, and they want to run the football to run out and grind out the clock with the lead in the fourth quarter. That's their philosophy. And I will say last week, I mentioned on the show, they came into the NFL leading the league in rushing attempts. They are number 2 this week. They've fallen behind the 49ers. But understand, it's 259 to 257. So there's 31 other teams in this league. One of them runs the football more than the Philadelphia Eagles. And then when you mentioned Dallas, the difference between number 18 and number 10 in the NFL when it comes to rushing yards given up, 98 yards to 108. It's not like the Cowboys are giving up 150 yards on the ground. They've been pretty solid. It's just a matter of the whole league doesn't run the football that much, so they only give up 108 yards per game on the ground. And if they were just a twinge better, they'd be top 10. So that's the kind of stuff I think needs context, and it's not like they're failing miserably when it comes to stopping the run.
Well, I like to debate the numbers with you, John, because, when you run the ball 48 times and then you come back the following week and you run it 40 times, those numbers can be skewed too when you average them in together. It's kind of like Miami, scoring 40 points on an opponent. Those numbers are always skewed. But if you look at the numbers from the standpoint of, how much the Eagles are actually running the football, it goes without saying the last 2 or 3 weeks, those numbers, those attempts are way down. Anyway, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball before we let you go. The Dallas Cowboys offense is not that juggernaut that it's been over the years. They're 11th against in rushing and 12th or 16th in pass, and they're one of the worst red zone offenses in the National Football League. Where do you see the Eagles making hay from a defensive standpoint against this offense?
Well, I think the luxury of working against this Dallas offense is they kind of haven't found that complement to CeeDee Lamb. So if you go, CeeDee Lamb has 46 catches, having a tremendous year, only 56 targets. So basically every time they throw the football to him, they're complete. And he's working, 63, 65, somewhere in that range percent of the time in the slot, which is the weakness, obviously, of the Eagles defense. So that kind of shapes up for the Cowboys. But you don't have the complement. The second best receiver on this team, reception-wise, is Tony Pollard from the backfield. Then you have a tight end, and you have to go down to Michael Gallup, who's got 20 catches. He's never been the same since he tore his ACL. Brandon Cooks has 16. So he hasn't, he's been a very good receiver for a very long time, but hasn't really manifested itself into Dallas just yet. So they haven't found that alternative to CeeDee Lamb. If I'm the Eagles, I'm going to do everything possible to try to take CeeDee Lamb out of this game, whether that, as I mentioned, is bracket coverage. And I'm going to force people like Brandon Cooks or Michael Gallup to beat me. And guess what? That's got to be Slay and Bradbury on the outside. You got to point to those two guys and say, it's on you. We're not going to give you a lot of help because we got to give a lot of help in the middle of the field to deal with CeeDee Lamb. So that's how I think Sean Desai should go about it. And I think that's the way he will go about it.
John, it's no question that we've talked a lot about the run game, and we've talked about making sure that that's something that helps keep that Dallas defense at bay. But on the defensive side of the football, how do you expect the snap count to look when it comes to the linebacking core of the Eagles? It seems like Nakobe Dean in recent weeks has left a lot to be desired. He's either working his way back into playing shape or not, and then the Eagles also liking the play of guys like Zach Cunningham, Nicholas Morrow, and all that. So when it comes defensively to the linebacking core for the Eagles, how do you see that snap count being allotted?
I think it's still the same. I think the Eagles are working towards and understand Nakobe Dean as their best linebacker, but, there's some startup costs there. I thought Nakobe was very good against the run in Washington. He struggled in the passing game. Maybe he learns from it. Maybe he gets incrementally better. Nicholas Morrow, I think, has played well. I think, ironically, Zach Cunningham, because he's probably the worst athlete of the three on paper. I think he's the best pass defender they have at linebacker because he's got tremendous length at 6'2", and he's also very savvy. So I think a lot of people, and Seth can probably talk to this better, some of linebackers, you need to have a feel for that zone coverage, and some young players who might be really athletic don't have that same kind of feel, and it hurts them a little bit. But I think if you're being honest with yourself, guys, they're just not very good at linebacker when it comes to pass coverage.
Fair enough. John, last thing for you, of course, your official prediction here ahead of Eagles-Cowboys.
I do think both teams are going to score some points. It's tough to pick against the Eagles. I just mentioned 26 consecutive weeks, best record in the NFL, or tied for the best record, home game. But I do think there's going to be some points scored, some ugly moments on the deep defensive side for both teams. I think the Eagles are going to win a 31-23-ish type game.
31-23, says John McMullen. John, thanks so much. Look forward to reading about it from you right here on JAKIB Media, as well as watching you and Jody McDonald on Birds 365 weekdays, Monday through Friday, right here on the JAKIB Media Sports Channel. John, thanks so much. We'll talk to you at halftime.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. I think I'm right in that same realm so far. We have our two predictions in. Adam Malamut has the Eagles winning this game 24-17, and John McMullen 31-23. We'll get more to
I know you got to go to break, man. But John said that he thought that Nakobe Dean played a great game against the run.
I thought you would have an issue with that statement.
Listen, he led the team in tackles.
That's true.
But most of the damn tackles he was making was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards down the field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's kind of an oxymoron, if you will. You know, you're not supposed to be making tackles that far down the field.
Right, you're not a free safety here.
Not a linebacker.
You're a linebacker, exactly.
Yeah.
It's good that it's good that you stop the play, but maybe stop it a couple of yards closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
We'll dissect.
I love the art of debate, you know, and I would love to just sit with John sometimes because he talked about context in the running game. You know, there's so much more to it. The NFL makes sure, you know, that they determine that every time the quarterback takes off, you know, out of a pass play, that it's deemed a run play. So if you really took all of Jalen Hurts' called pass plays that turned into scrambles and you wiped them off the board, the Eagles will probably be 70-30 run the pass.
You want me to call John back and get him back on and be like, one more thing.
No,
and by the way,
it's just I get it, you know, the NFL, even the Eagles, you know, they like to prop up this narrative about how insignificant the run game really is. Or they'll say, oh, we run it, you know, look at how many times that we run it. You know, but you can't include quarterback runs in your running game. Mm-hmm. Now, I get it. When you're running RPOs or you got a called run play for a quarterback, that's different. But there's like 5 or 6 plays in a game. You multiply that over, you know, an 8-week schedule, which they're 7-1, that's 40 runs. That's 40 runs to that total that you're talking about. If you took those 40 runs off, that difference between us and San Francisco would go up exponentially. Mm-hmm. Because I guarantee you, their quarterback ain't running the damn ball. Mm-hmm. Their running back is running the ball. You know, and when they were successful, they were running the ball. McCaffrey was running the ball. They were balanced offensively. They could get play action going. When McCaffrey got hurt and teams had figured out ways to stop them, that's when they lost 3 games in a row. Because now you took the play action away from Brock Purdy. The timing of routes are off, you know, because you don't have the ability to run the football to set it all up, you know. So I get it. You know, there's all of these narratives out there, how people like to really talk about the insignificance of the run game and how important the passing game is, and it is, you know. But I like to really sit down with people and if you want to talk about the numbers and you really want to dig into the numbers, you're talking to the wrong dude trying to sell me on that nonsense because I look at it from a different perspective.
I tried to help by saying, you know, we left something to be desired, and John didn't necessarily agree with that. In Nakobe Dean, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, originally. But, you know, that's the hill that they like to die on.
Fair enough.
You know.
Fair enough. We're going to continue to dissect, Bill. I know you have a lot on this as well. We'll get to that. But also, we want to make sure that we remind you guys about the wonderful partnership we have with the EBOD Foundation, the EBOD Foundation. Just like football, a team's strength lies in its players. And working as a team, the more people who support Alzheimer's research and help combat Alzheimer's and as well as dementia, they do a lot to make sure that it is fought and the research is going on. And this month, this November, during Alzheimer's Awareness Month, JAKIB Media is joining forces with the EBOD Foundation to lead the charge and make sure that there is a cure found. Your donation today not only supports the critical mission that we all have in front of us, but also enters you to win a trip to the big game in Vegas. This is your opportunity to win tickets to the big game, 2 nights at a hotel in Las Vegas, as well as $2,000 in cash for expenses. All you have to do is text the word SCORE to 833-202-9835. That's 833-202-9835, and receive info on how to enter and win this fantastic trip. Together, let's triumph over Alzheimer's. We'll be right back with the Malamut Law pregame show when it continues in a few.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
We wear protective booties in your home.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show ahead of Week 9. The Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys in South Philadelphia. We, of course, are here live at Ocean Casino's amazing gallery, bar, book, and games. Marc Farzetta with you here, along with Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner and Bill Colarulo from Legal Hands to the Face podcast, as well as Philly Sports Power Hour. If you may have noticed by now, Derek Gunn not with us this week. Has a family emergency that he is tending to. I will say your prayers and your good vibes seem to be working, and they're helping him in a situation that he is dealing with right now with his family. So continued prayers and good vibes to our friend Derek Gunn. Before we went to break, we were talking a lot about the Eagles and their run defense, which happens to rank tops in the NFL right now. But when you talk about that linebacker position in particular, Nakobe Dean has had his struggles this season, obviously coming back from injury, might have to be playing himself back into game shape. And then we look at guys like Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham. But, Bill, when you look at this Eagles run defense and what opponents have done to them in their run game, how do the Eagles stack up against them?
Eagles' run defense has been very good, even with the carousel that's been going on at the linebacker position. And the Dallas Cowboys running game hasn't been very great this year. You look at Tony Pollard. In the 2 seasons before this, he's averaging over 5 yards a carry. This year, he's under 4. He's about 3.9 yards per carry. But Seth was talking to John before the break about how they really need to establish the run against this 18th-ranked Dallas defense. And John said you got to take that in context. Well, when you look at the numbers, the Cowboys are 5-2 this season. In 5 wins, the opposing offenses averaged 74 yards rushing. And in their 2 losses, the opposing offense has averaged 196 yards rushing. The formula to win this game is right in front of the Eagles. Run the football.
Hey, Bill, how's that for context?
Yeah, exactly.
I would say dead on. But, all right, there's 2 things, and I teased this earlier with you, Seth, and Bill, I'll bring you this as well. There are 2 things in particular that I would love to see from the Philadelphia Eagles that I feel like we have screamed about all season long. One is on the offensive side. The other is on the defensive side. One, run the football. Would love to see a guy like DeAndre Swift get at least 20 carries in a game like this. Maybe 5 catches, maybe 25 touches in general and throughout the entire game. The other, on the other side of the football, especially when you're going to be facing off a guy like CeeDee Lamb, I would like to see the Eagles go into this game with more press coverage than we have ever seen. Seth, when you look at it from that perspective, as the 2 things we scream about the most, is this the game where they're most applicable?
Well, they can be because they really only have one weapon at wide receiver, and that's CeeDee Lamb. You know, they're going to have some issues in the middle of the field again. They took care of it for a couple of weeks, and then last week it kind of reared its ugly head again. This Ferguson kid is a guy that Dak, especially in the red zone, likes to go to. So if the linebackers aren't up to the task, that's going to be problematic. I don't know. I mean, you know, you talk about things being right there in front of this team about what the game plan should look like and what they should do, but they don't always follow conventional wisdom. CeeDee Lamb is a guy that, you know, they move all over the place to be able to create the type of mismatches that they want. When you start moving him from either the X or the Z position and putting him in the slot and having him moving in motion, I'm of the belief that you got to have a plan for him. You know, let's figure out a way to take him away. He is their A.J. Brown to their offense, okay? Their offense is really going to roll when he's moving. And if he's moving and, you know, and he's grooving and the Eagles don't have an answer for him, I mean, he's a guy that can go damn near, you know, 200 yards receiving. So when you're going, if you got him in motion, they should be, you know, I don't like the bracket. I like guys that just jam and play a guy over top. One guy's responsible for the inside, the other guy's responsible for the outside. Because what teams have done, Tyreek Hill did it 2 weeks ago, and Terry McLaurin did it last week. When you play that bracket coverage and the quarterback and the wide receiver recognize it, they just split it and run a go right in between it. But yeah, I feel like I think the defensive backs, Farzy, are a lot more aggressive when you put them in an aggressive posture. Like, again, I'll go back to the Kansas City game I watched this morning. Steve Spagnuolo is aggressive by nature to begin with. So when you watch these cornerbacks play and you watch them as a defense play, they play so much more aggressively. You know, they're not sitting there waiting for something to happen. They're actually trying to figure out how to make something happen. And I think when you put players in that posture, that they play that way. I think that Bradbury and Slay can be much better cornerbacks when you put them in that posture. Because we've seen it before. You know, when you put them up and they're jamming and they're running with guys, they're a hell of a lot better than when they're playing off and having to read on the stem whether the guy's breaking in or breaking out. You know, now they're passive because they don't know which way the play is actually going. But if I'm up on a guy and I can get my hands on him and I can jam him and I can make him go or release where I want him to release, now things are a lot more predictable for me, and I can play a lot more aggressive from that posture.
Bill, I'll ask you the same question. I mean, obviously we all want to see them run the ball more, but when it comes to that press coverage on the outside, it feels like that is something that we scream about every single week. And when I went back and watched that 49ers game against the Dallas Cowboys, they had Dak Prescott shell-shocked in that game because guys were playing up at the line, guys were playing aggressive, and they were also getting after him in the backfield. The Eagles, with this defensive line, have that same type of ability to make Dak Prescott, for the first time against the Eagles in a long time, look shell-shocked.
And before you answer, Bill, see, the problem is when guys get up in there and press coverage, the hard part is the quarterback's not sure what the heck's going on. He don't know whether they're actually in man coverage or whether they're going to bail, or they don't know. So you take away a lot of the pre-snap read of a guy being 7 to 10 yards off the ball, and the probability of what you're probably in is more validatable when you're in that posture than it is when you're up. Because, I mean, you can be up in man, you can play jam, you can play man from a step off, so the ball is snapped, and instead of you jamming the guy, you just kind of back off and you read, you mirror him and you read. You can bail and play cover 3 from up. You can play cover 2 from up, where you can either force him outside and then roll back in, or you can force him inside to the linebacker. There's so many different things you can do from that more aggressive posture. I apologize. Go ahead, Bill. I digress.
No problem. So you look at last year's defense, a lot of people got on Jonathan Gannon because he played a similar style of defense, but they were number 1 against the pass. It's not working this year. Playing this soft coverage is not working. The Eagles' defense is 26 in the NFL against the pass, and they've given up the 4th most amount of yards to wide receivers at 192 yards per game. So you got to give this defensive line some time to get to the quarterback, because they do lead the league in quarterback pressures, but they're not getting as many sacks as they did last year. They're still doing really well. They're 6th in the NFL with 25 sacks. But if they could just give them a half a second longer to get to the quarterback, you'd see that sack total go up as well. Just look at last week. Sam Howell. It became clear to every single person watching that game, he's trying to get the ball out of his hands quickly. But yet the corners are still playing 8 to 10 yards off the ball. Get in their face, don't give them a clean release, and give your D-line time and an opportunity to get pressure on the quarterback. That was one of the worst teams in the league, the Washington Commanders, when it came to protecting Sam Howell. But yet the corners didn't give our D-line time to get there. So I would like to see them do that today. Don't give CeeDee Lamb clean releases. Get in his face. Make it hard on him. Give your D-line time to get pressure on Dak.
I'm going to ask this question to both of you. Bill, I'll start with you. Who is under more pressure today from a coordinator standpoint with the Philadelphia Eagles? I think the knee-jerk reaction is Brian Johnson, but I think you could easily go to a guy like Sean Desai, who I think has proven that he's a better coordinator at this point this year. But who do you think is under more pressure in today's game, in this particular matchup? Is it Sean Desai or is it Brian Johnson?
Sometimes I got to take a step back when we're up here, because we are sitting here at 7-1. So when we talk
to hell with the record. We're talking about the coordinators, friend.
When we talk about who's under pressure, but I still think it's Brian Johnson, only because as good as the offense has looked statistically, we say it every week watching the game, Seth, the eye test just doesn't work for me. Something just looks disjointed with the offense. They don't look like they have that same dominance they did last year. They're getting good end results. They're putting up a lot of yards. They're putting up a lot of points. But I think as we start to go through this gauntlet stretch and we start to get into this part of the season, they have to be more balanced. The play calling has to be more creative, especially down in the red zone. We've seen them get a little bit better each week, but if you're going to settle for field goals instead of touchdowns, you're not going to win a lot of games in this league. So I still think Brian Johnson has to show me that he can call plays and be creative, especially down in the red zone.
Fair enough. Seth, who do you go with?
I say Brian Johnson as well, just because, this Dallas offense is not as prolific as it used to be, in my opinion. They don't have 2, 3, 4 weapons, that can hurt you. You don't fear their rushing game. They're averaging 117 yards per game, but over the last 2 games, Dak has picked up, how much he's actually run the ball. So those numbers are probably helping Tony Pollard and their run game in particular. I say the Brian Johnson in the offense because, this defense, when they're playing at their best, they are a catalyst for the offense. Like, when they're turning the ball over at the rate that they turn it over, you know, when they're playing and those two, when Lawrence and Parsons are doing what they do and the cornerbacks are realize that, you know, the pressure's imminent and the quarterback's only going to have one read, I got to hurry up and get it out of my hands, you know. So what the cornerbacks are doing, they're playing that, you know. So if they can get the Eagles in that position, then it's going to be, okay, how do we mitigate that? How do we slow down this pass rush? How do we take away some of the aggressive nature of this defense? You know, what plays can I call, you know, to slow it down? I talked about it, you know, on my podcast earlier this week. I don't understand why teams don't, you know, go 12 personnel, because you can't by strength get Micah Parsons on the strong side, because when you go 2 tight ends, 12 personnel, and you got their balance, you're going to go strong left to the offense's right. So Micah Parsons is going to go on the other side. So why not put 2 tight ends over on this side, or put a tight end in that backfield as a fullback in the H position and say, okay, if we can't force you on the strong side and we can't run the ball at you that way, this is what we're going to do. We're going to line that tight end either up here and motion him across in the fullback position and shift him up to the weak side, okay? Then we're going to shift the tight end on the strong side, what used to be the strong side, off the ball, put the Z receiver up on the ball, and motion him across. Now I got both tight ends over on what used to be the weak side, which is now declared as the new strong side, over on Micah Parsons. And we're going to run the ball at his behind all day long. We're going to wear him out with 2 tight ends blocking him all day long until the pass rush is an afterthought. Now we can throw the ball, and the only guy we're going to have to worry about is DeMarcus Lawrence, who we know lines up over on the other side against, you know, all-world Lane Johnson, who still hadn't given up a sack in 3 years, and we ain't worried about him. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. The Eagles' mentality every week is we're going to pass to set up the run. And what I'd like to see them do today is flip that. Let's establish the run to set up the pass. Be able to run play action to keep these guys guessing, because what the Dallas Cowboys defense wants you to do is drop back 40, 50 times a game and throw the football. You're playing right into their hands.
Yes.
So you have to establish the run early. And even if you're not getting a lot of yards, just stay committed to it so that you can keep this Dallas team on their heels about what are you going to do. If the Eagles come out and say, we're going to run the ball, or we're going to throw the ball, like they did against the Jets where they came out and threw the ball 8 straight plays to start the game, if I'm Dan Quinn and that Dallas defense, I'm thinking you're playing right into our hands. That's what we want you to do.
Bill, I don't even believe that I don't believe that they believe that you throw the ball to run the ball. I think that they just honestly believe that
you throw the ball to throw the ball.
You throw the ball because it gives you the best opportunity to put points on the board and get explosive plays. Now, if you got a lead and you get to the second half, well, of course, there's no need to continue to throw the ball. Now you're going to run it. So it hasn't done you any benefit as far as your overall offense, other than the fact that you want to run some clock. You know, and this is where, you know, the whole theory that, you know, the short passing game, you know, the passes to the backs coming out of the backfield is an extension of the running game. BS. Because you want to know something? If you really thought that, when you got in your 4-minute situation, you don't need to turn around and hand it off to your running back. Just throw it out there. Just throw a little swing pass to Kenneth Gainwell or to DeAndre Swift, because isn't that an extension of your run game?
So I'm told.
But when they're ahead, you don't see them run those plays anymore. That's why I call BS when they come out with the short passing game is an extension of the run game. Man, stop it.
Well, you talked about that 4-minute offense. This is another reason I have a problem with the offense so far through 8 weeks, even though they're sitting here at 7-1. We were watching the game last week. Eagles were up. There's 4 minutes left. Me and you both said in the green room, they can't work their 4-minute offense now. They haven't established the run at all day. And then what happened? They go 3 and out. They got to give the ball back. So you have to be able to run the football as you go through this tough stretch of games. They're winning in spite of that they haven't really been able to run the last 5 weeks. But let's hope that changes today. I don't want to be negative. We're almost at the end of the show. Let's be positive.
Jeez, guys, come on.
Yeah, but, it bears talking about because by the time we get in the post game, we're either going to be talking about the success they had because they used it early and they implemented it early and they didn't wait until everything went to hell in a handbasket and you got, the Dallas Cowboys defense, chumming the waters, because they taste blood, but they did it early enough to keep the defense off balance and to bring flow to their offense. So it's not a negative thing. We're talking game plan and we're talking about how it looks and how it's all going to play out as far as, how well the offense is going to play today. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I like the idea of using the pass to set up more passes. I'm still going to be stuck on that one for a minute. But when you look at this offense, though, one thing, Seth, and I don't know if your ears were ringing earlier in the week, but I did a guest hit on Bill's show, Philly Sports Power Hour, right here on JAKIB Media, and we were talking about a couple of things that we yelled about. One was the press coverage, the other was running the football. But you had this theory earlier in the week, and I referenced it with Bill, about not using the RPO as much as they had in years past. Like they're not using it as much this year. For example, Jalen Hurts is throwing the football out of the RPO only half the amount of times that he was running it last year. So they're not exactly setting it up the way they have in years past. And maybe they were saving that for later in the season. Could they have been saving it for this quote-unquote gauntlet of this 6-game stretch? And you have had success with Lane Johnson. You talked about using the tight ends to block Micah Parsons. You have had success in the past of using that RPO and Lane Johnson to nullify Micah Parsons, who, by the way, in 4 games against the Eagles only has a half of a sack. Hasn't even gotten to a full sack yet against the Eagles. Do you think we're going to be seeing a little bit more of the RPO game from Brian Johnson in this offense against the Cowboys and possibly for the foreseeable 6 games?
Well, I think what prevents that from happening is the fact that, Jalen's not 100%, and as an example, if I was Dan Quinn and I begin to see a steady diet of the RPO, I'd make Jalen run the football. I'd make him run the ball because they're a fast defense and they're going to close. So you take away the run, okay? You take away the R portion of it, and you take away the pass portion of it by playing inside technique from time to time to take away the slant, and you force Jalen Hurts to run the ball because he's ailing. So it takes a little bit of discretion when you're talking about, do we use it because we haven't used it a lot? It's my theory that they've kind of moved away from running as much RPO this year as they had last year because they couldn't get it going early. Belichick stopped it. Then Brian Flores stopped it. Then, the passing game was like kind of suffering and on life support. So by the time they got to Todd Bowles, they realized that we got to run the ball. So they went to a more conventional stretch type of, hand the ball out of shotgun opposed to just running pure RPO. Now that Jalen is hurt, you can't put him in that position because if you lose him, the season is done. You don't have another guy that's coming in there that's going to be able to run the offense the way he runs it. So I don't – that might have been their plan. Okay, let's shelve it for now because we're having a little bit of problems with it at the beginning of the year. But it's always something that they got in their back pocket that they can pull out and use when they need to use it. But now with Jalen Hurts, it doesn't make sense. It's not the prudent thing to do to put him in a situation where a defensive coordinator can force him to run the ball with his knee being injured.
All right, we have reached the time in the broadcast where we're going to give our official predictions for Eagles-Cowboys Week 9. Bill, I'll start with you. What do you have for today's game?
That Dallas defense is very good. And in their 5 wins, they have a turnover differential of +10. In their 2 losses, a turnover differential of -4. So the Eagles can't afford to turn the ball over today. Jalen Hurts has to protect the football. We can't throw interceptions. We can't have fumbles, especially down in the red zone. I know some people have predicted the Eagles are going to put up a ton of points. I can't see them getting into the 30s against a team that's only given up 17 points a game to start this season. But I do have the Eagles winning. I think they're going to establish the run. Maybe this is wishful thinking on my part. But I think Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni are going to have the right game plan to run the football, and they're going to win a close game 27-24 by winning the turnover battle first. That's going to be the key to this game.
You mentioned the turnovers, and that is a huge deal going into this game. And you referenced DaRon Bland earlier. This is my favorite stat that has to do with this game because it makes the Dallas Cowboy offense not exactly look great. And then when you're averaging 28 points per game, you look kind of good. But when your cornerback is tied for the team lead in touchdowns, which DaRon Bland is. More touchdowns this year than Tony Pollard, Jake Ferguson, more touchdowns this year than Brandon Cooks, for instance. That makes your offense look kind of null and void. And I think the Eagles' defense is going to have their struggles today, unfortunately, but just a stat worth pointing out. I'm similar to you in that I have it being a 3-point Eagles win, Bill. I have the Eagles winning this game against the Dallas Cowboys 33-30, and I think the Eagles are going to help make the Cowboys look like a team that's similar to the Miami Dolphins. They're a good team, but they're not an elite team. Eagles win this football game today. Seth, what do you have?
See, this week had to be about a point of emphasis, and the point of emphasis had to be taking care of the football, Bill. The Cowboys, like I said earlier, when they can force turnovers and force them in bunches and turn pick sixes, scoop and scores and things of that nature, they begin to chum the waters, on the defensive side of the ball. And then that leads to how proficient the offense can do. When the defense can spot you 7 or spot you 14 in a game, you know how much easier it is and how much relaxed you can be from an offensive perspective. I think the point of emphasis is take care of the football for this Philadelphia Eagles offense, particularly not just for this game, but for the next 5 games going forward. They've got to get away from this, turn the ball over 2 times on average per game. I think that, our defense understands that this is a massive competition. They've got a good defense. We're self-prescribed as a great defense. We're number 1 against the run. There's times where we look very good against the pass. We got elite pass rushers on both ends the same way that they do. So that competition is going to be massive. I think that the difference is going to be whether the Eagles will commit to running the ball early and shortening this game, minimizing the amount of possessions that you give the Dallas Cowboys. I just think that this is a team you can beat into submission. To Bill's point, we talked about those 2 games that they played where the two teams averaged over 180 yards rushing. If you can do that, you can demoralize this team. I watched those games, and I've seen the demeanor and the look on those defensive players' faces when they could not stop the run, and it opened up everything else. That will help the offense. And you got 3 phases just for that reason. Rely on your defense to do the most for your offense so that your offense can win this football game the way that they need to. You do not need to come out and throw the ball 40 times in this game and put Jalen Hurts in harm's way by allowing this defense to really get after you. That all being said, there ain't no way in hell I'm picking against the Eagles, to win this, to lose this game. Eagles win this game. They're 28-21 is my prediction.
28-21 has Seth Joyner and the Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for the Malamut Law pregame show ahead of the Week 9 action. Cowboy Week, Dallas Week in South Philadelphia. And also another shout-out to our friend Derek Gunn. Again, unfortunately, Gunner couldn't be with us today due to a family emergency. We have received some word from Gunner throughout the broadcast today. Things are looking much better for his family, so that is a good thing. Keep the prayers, keep the good vibes coming for our friend and colleague, Mr. Derek Gunn. Thanks for joining us. We'll be along with you guys again for the halftime show. John McMullen will be joining us then as well, and then we'll have the Pond La Hockey post-game show. Mike Missinelli will be driving that ship along with Bill Colarulo, Kayla Santiago, myself, and Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner. Until then, go Birds.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA State tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Hey Philly, it's Tom Giordano from Pond Lee Hockey. Follow us on Instagram for your chance to win free Eagles tickets all season long. That's right, I'm talking regular season, playoffs, and even the Super Bowl. So follow us on Instagram for your chance to win free Eagles tickets.